Hello, our fellow speechies. Those of you who are new to the AAC world, welcome. This is AAC with AJ and E. My name's Ashley, or Ash for short. I'm from Long Island, and I completed my undergraduate degree at SUNY Cortland. Go see State. Whoop whoop.
Hi, my name is Jacquie for short. I am also a fellow Long Islander. I received my bachelor's at St. Joseph's College.
Nice. My name's Emily. I am from Amsterdam, New York. A lot of people think I'm from the Netherlands, and I have to correct them. I am from New York. And I completed my undergrad at SUNY New Paltz.
Nice. I thought you were from the Netherlands.
I know. That's okay.
I went there.
So we're grad students here at SUNY Fredonia, and we're studying to become speech therapists. We are currently in the Communication Sciences and Disorders program. And before we dive into something, we have a little special topic for you guys. So we found it from the American Speech Language Hearing Association, which is also known as ASHA for short. And technically, this is an organization where speech therapists and audiologists get our credentials, which is pretty cool. It's also where we can get other information on topics and find out about conferences that are happening to further our knowledge in the field.
ASHA has current articles available to the public to read on their website, which is www.asha.org. So feel free to go check it out. The current article we are going to talk about is titled Tips on Helping Families with Hearing Loss at Holiday Gatherings. With the holidays approaching, we thought we could share some tips and strategies on how to help individuals who have hearing loss, whether that be your loved ones or yourself, to enjoy the holiday season. For most of us, this will be our first holiday season in a while sharing with our families because now we are not in quarantine or social distancing. So here are some strategies and tips from ASHA on how everyone can be involved and socialize during the holiday season, even with the hearing loss. I come from a very Italian family where yelling is known as talking.
Me too.
And there is so much background noise as well. So some things you could do to help someone with the hearing loss would be to take turns speaking and reduce some of the background noise. An example would be not playing music and not having the TV on in the background. It is also hard to hear when everyone is speaking over one another, and it could be frustrating. These tips help the individual to look at and focus on the one person who is speaking without any background noise interfering. Again, this is something my family can definitely benefit from as well, by not shouting, but rather speaking clearly one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we think if someone cannot hear us, the solution is to yell. We've all been guilty of doing that at one point or another. However, instead of yelling, it's better to speak clearly and not mumble.
Yeah, I'm definitely guilty of mumbling.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. During the holidays, we usually in my family, we migrate to the kitchen, or some of us do not move from the couch until it's time to eat, including me. I don't move, I stay on the couch.
Me too.
When someone has a difficult time hearing, not facing them when you're speaking or shouting from another room is not beneficial. It's really a struggle for them.
Mm-hmm.
Individuals with hearing loss really depend on reading lips. So if you don't face the person when speaking, it's more difficult for them to understand you. There's also something we've been wearing more recently that definitely affects our speech too. Any idea what that might be, girls?
Masks.
Yeah, exactly, masks. Some relatives may be wearing a mask this holiday season. It's important to remember how this affects speech, causing it to be less clear and even more difficult to understand. So there are now clear masks. I don't know if some of you knew that, but they're definitely a great alternative, and they still allow for lip reading. They also do not muffle the sound or speech the way that the surgical masks do. So those were just some helpful tips for the holidays, and now we're going to dive into socializing with AAC devices for individuals who really have difficulty communicating without them. So for our listeners who aren't really familiar with AAC, what exactly is that? And want to take it away?
Of course. So AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. ASHA actually defined it really well. They explained it as children and adults with severe speech or language problems, and they may need to find other ways to communicate besides talking. There's actually many types of augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC, and they can use this with SOPs, and they really help them. So each device is set up really differently based on the user's needs. They can change the amount of buttons that they need, different pictures, words, organizations, categories, and they can even change the type of voice used. So if someone identifies as a male, they can use a male voice. If they identify as a female, they can use a female voice. And since AAC devices are used to communicate, they also go hand in hand with social skills and socializing. So that goes to show that social skills are how we interact with others during communicating. This can really be done by talking with each other, using sign language, facial expressions, body language. It's an important part in everyone's lives, like we're doing right now with you guys. And because of that, social skills are a lot broader than communication in the aspect that there's so many different interpretations on what a person may say. This is all about intonation, body language, eye contact, and all the emotions that go into communicating.
To start us off, we are going to talk about the different levels of AAC devices, which are no-tech, low-tech, and high-tech. We will explain how each one helps with social skills and socialization. Woohoo! Get excited!
Yeah.
We are.
First up, we have no-tech devices. Many of you may not know, but we are actually all AAC users.
What?
Yeah, isn't that so cool? No-tech devices include gestures, facial expressions, body language, eye contact, and even American Sign Language, or ASL for short. It's something you do every day and you don't even realize it. Some people may think that learning sign language helps them to communicate with, everyone, and it's not exactly true. Not everyone knows sign language, so just because one person learns sign language and they can communicate, they might not be able to communicate with everybody. Mm-hmm. Imagine a kid that goes to school and he knows sign language, but his friends don't know sign language, or the teacher doesn't know sign language, so it's not very functional to use in day-to-day living. So it's a good AAC device, and it's free, and people use it as language, obviously. Mm-hmm. But ASL helps people to communicate in the community and outside of the deaf community. But if a person doesn't have any way to communicate, there could be some serious psychological and emotional effects on that person. So a more commonly used device for people who are nonverbal or have difficulty communicating are low-tech devices.
Mm-hmm. So these, quote, devices can be just simple pictures or words on paper, and they're something that the person can point to. They're more easily accessible, and they can be made right at home at a lower cost, although they're not speech generating or electronic. That's what makes them more accessible. So an example of this would be a vision board. We actually had to make this for our class that we're doing this podcast for, and we had to make a board of pictures and words under them of playground things and stuff that kids would need for playground and playing and communicating with their peers on an all-inclusive playground.
Yeah, that's really neat. It helps the kids talk to one another.
Yeah, exactly. And this is actually a very like a real thing that's happening. Like, we didn't have to just do it for class. Like, it's happening in our state and everywhere.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So a low-tech board actually can be really helpful for someone who has autism spectrum disorder and they might have difficulty communicating. This can really allow for less frustration on this person because they're more easily able to communicate their needs or what they want to talk about or do. And this actually reminds me of another podcast that we listened to. And what happened was an SLP was on a plane, and there happened to be a child on board with her who was crying, and his father couldn't really figure out how to help him with what he needed. So she ended up talking to the father, and he mentioned that he was autistic and nonverbal, so she actually sat with him, and she helped him make a low-tech board on a piece of paper with drawings and words, and it helped him so much.
Yeah, I remember that. It was really nice. I remember thinking that you really have to have some courage to help the dad out without stepping on toes that he didn't have it already.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and also you're on a plane, so you really don't have a lot of materials.
Exactly.
So the fact that she was able to do that
Yeah.
really shows how beneficial and kind of simple it is.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad that she did this, and I love that she helped him, but I really think that he could benefit from a high-tech device, actually.
Yeah, I definitely think the father remembered that.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
And looked into it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So that lady could easily make a low-tech AAC board with some materials she had laying around. She could write some words on a paper that the child could point to. But there are also very high-tech devices, and most people who are familiar with AAC typically think of these high-tech devices. These are programs or apps on devices that allow individuals to express their thoughts. You can personalize them for each person's individual needs. High-tech devices typically refer to electronic speech-generating devices. These are programs that are downloaded to the high-tech devices. There are companies such as Tobii Dynavox and Cough Drop that sell their own devices. You receive the device in the mail, and then you or an SLP can download their program onto the device. However, these are very expensive and can be really extremely high-tech. For example, eye gaze tracks your eye movement to select buttons, so you can imagine how expensive that is. But we will go more into detail on that later on. These programs can also be as simple as apps that you download onto your iPad and other devices as well. Just like if you have an iPad at home, you can just download the app. You might just have to pay for the app, but it's awesome because it's multi-purpose. You have it as your typical iPad, but you also have it as
A form of communication.
Thank you. We are also able to individualize each device or program to meet the needs of each individual users. I know we've said this many times, but it's very important. You can have someone of different ages. You can have someone with different disorders. Depending on that, it really depends on what they're going to say on the device and what will be on it. So,
Even language. You can use different languages, too. It makes it so versatile and, international.
yeah,
Which
it's
is
true.
amazing. Yeah.
People don't know these things.
For our listeners who are sports fans, you may be familiar with Steve Gleason. For those of you who are not familiar with Steve Gleason, he's a former American football player for the New Orleans Saints. After his retirement, he found out he was diagnosed with ALS, which stands for
Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis.
and is described as a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerve cells in the brain and the spinal cord. Individuals with ALS do not have control over their body and lose the ability to move and speak. It is important to note that individuals with ALS still have control over their mind. So they still have their social skills they've acquired, but they are unable to use them, basically being a prisoner trapped in their own mind.
That sounds really rough.
Yeah, imagine all those thoughts. You can't say a single thing that you're thinking.
I couldn't imagine.
Wow.
There is a documentary called Gleason. Warning, this is a total spoiler alert if you have not seen it, so sorry in advance. But if you decide to watch it, I highly recommend having a box of tissues handy. Right, ladies?
Oh my God. I used at least 4 boxes, I swear to God.
You really did.
I had snot dripping.
Oh!
Sorry for that visual, guys. It was bad.
My friend walked in and she said, "What is going on?"
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a tearjerker for sure. But we do highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It is about his journey on how his communication went from typical to completely gone in a very short amount of time. Before he could no longer talk, he programmed his voice into the device he would use for the rest of his life, which is eye gaze. He is able to do this because he at one time had the ability to speak and verbally socialize. Now, when he uses the device, it is as if he is still socializing with his friends and loved ones because it's his own voice. He started using eye gaze, one of the high-tech devices mentioned earlier. Eye gaze is when someone uses their eyes to track and choose the letter they want to form words. We have all had the opportunity to use this eye gaze device, and it is extremely difficult to say the least, right, guys?
Yeah. It was hard.
If it was not for AAC, he would basically have been held captive in his mind and thoughts with no way to communicate and express himself, even though he has those social skills. This is a great example of how AAC not only helps individuals gain and develop social skills and form social relationships, but can also help someone use the social skills they already have. Eye gaze gave him the opportunity to live his life again, and it's crazy to think about what people did before AAC devices.
Yeah.
I really can't imagine.
And the range is crazy from the low tech all the way to this high tech. It's insane.
Many options.
Oh, yeah. So versatile. So since we already spoke about, like, in great detail about a couple of disorders, I just wanted to quickly list off different disorders because of how versatile these devices can be. It can cover and help so many people with so many different disorders. So some of these include developmental delays, praxia and dyspraxia, cerebral palsy, and cognitive impairments, physical disabilities, traumatic brain injuries or TBIs, stroke, cancer, and other degenerative diseases like ALS and MS is also another one.
Yeah, we have a wide range of clients at the Speech Center, and they all have many of those disorders that you've listed. So how do SLPs utilize those devices within therapy to increase that expressive language in any of those people?
Great question.
Yeah. So the goals are similar to those that we use when we want a child to speak, like when they are
Developing their language.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Typical development.
Yeah.
We want individuals to be able to greet people and engage in those social interactions using that device. We might have a child show us how they would use their device inside the classroom. We might have them demonstrate it inside the clinic room. We could ask them to answer questions using their device. Or the SLP could say, tell me with your device. So instead of the child pointing to something, you just say, tell me, use your device. And the child might click, want to go eat, or want Wendy's. Another example would be to be having a simple conversation with the person and having them utilize common phrases, or we call them scripts, such as, how are you? What did you do today? Or do you want to play with me? Depending on the severity of the disorder, the button could be the entire phrase, how are you, could be one button, or it could be 3 different words, how are you? But it doesn't only have to be these questions or comments. There's also buttons for responding to questions, such as yes or no.
And also, we're able to make the device easy to learn. So the child or adult or adolescent who is learning to use the device can start off with like maybe 2 buttons or like 1 button. And as they grow and learn how to use the device, we can allow them to have more buttons to verbally be able to communicate what they want. With the other
Like
person.
the device kind of
Right.
grows with their progression as well.
Yeah, they grow with each other. That's nice.
They mend as one.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cute.
and it's true.
It's
It
so
is
true.
true.
It's so helpful.
I really like that tool where you can hide the buttons.
Oh, yeah.
So there could be like 10 buttons on the screen and you hide 5 of them, so
Yeah.
it's not overwhelming.
Yeah.
But when you unhide those buttons, the buttons don't move to a different place. They're all in the same exact spot, and you're making them appear as you said, as they grow.
Yeah,
with
and
their
that's an
device.
important point too, because like you guys said, these devices is what the child's going to use or adult's going to use all the time. So it kind of becomes like muscle memory,
Yeah.
like knowing
Yeah.
where each thing is, and you don't want to change where anything is because
Yeah.
kind of rock their world. Which,
Yeah.
Even when I change my apps on my phone, I can't find them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally messes me
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine this. So that being said, during the height of COVID, we were under quarantine and we did not have many opportunities for social interactions. We can all personally attest to how detrimental the lack of communication and social interactions had on us all. Because as you can all tell, we love to talk. Something we as humans all share is the need to socialize. So just imagine not having those social interactions on a daily basis because of a skill you lack, not because you don't want to, but because you can't. Social anxiety is something that also has increased due to COVID. AAC allows individuals who lack social skills and also have anxiety still form and maintain social relationships. Being able to communicate seems like something so small because we all use communication all the time, just like walking, right? But the fact is, communication is what makes the world revolve on its axis. AAC is all around and allows people to communicate. It is important to remember that AAC is not a one-size-fits-all. It's strictly up to the needs and wants of the individual and the people they interact with, which is kind of what
100%.
we were saying before.
Yeah.
Something we've learned very quickly is that everyone's needs and wants are very different. Going back to the examples, some need AAC for prompting and thought process, while others depend fully on their device for communication.
So that's all we have for our podcast tonight. We really hope you guys liked this, and thank you so much for listening. If you're looking to learn more, there's so many podcasts available. Just look up speech or AAC podcasts. Specifically, one that we listen to a lot is called Talking with Tech. And yeah, thanks.
I hope you guys learned something.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Bunch of fun.
And this was
AAC with A, J, and E.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.